Yeah, we're live. Dang it, I forgot. Lisa made me some new shirts today. I can't wait. I'll show those to you tomorrow. She did some new versions of these, which were cool. So I'll be able to show those tonight. Tomorrow I made a post on Instagram or Facebook or something, and unfortunately I don't have any available. They're just for me. They're actually just shirts that we had left over that hadn't been printed on yet, because she does this with her little Cricut thing, which is awesome. Today we're going to talk about the video that I just posted up today, which is a VORTECH supercharged small block Chevy. And it started out life, I think way back, what they were designed was because I came into the first part of this actually late. I think what they were trying to do with the guys from Jegs is they wanted to put together some sort of inexpensive supercharged like small block Chevy combination. So they're selecting all these different things and kind of packaging them together and finding out what they could put together on a supercharged deal. For me, it's just good data. And then I could step in and do more testing, which I did later on. And I've run that 190. I don't think they offer it anymore, but I've run that 190 horsepower GM crate motor a lot. We've started off with that because it was always a good kind of known baseline, and they call it 190 horsepower motor. It's not actually a complete motor. It actually is a long block. So you have to put your own intake manifold, carburetor, distributor, headers. I think maybe a damper or something, maybe also for the front, if I remember right. But we had to put that stuff on. But every time anybody ever did that, it always made about the same power. It was always 250 or 260 horsepower or so. So I don't know why they didn't just call it that, because that's what they made whenever you put and we ran a variety of different things. We ran a bunch of different dual planes on it. We ran carburetors of different sizes, 650s and 750s and stuff. And then any kind of header that you'd put on there, whether it was a chassis header, you'd always use a 1 5/8 or 1 3/4, some sort of chassis header like a Camaro or Chevelle or something like that. But we run those dyno headers, which work well. We do that primarily because it makes life easy for us to route the wiring. They fit on everything. Bolting them on is a lot easier. It's more of a convenience thing than anything. So unless we're doing a dedicated header test, that's normally what they get, despite the fact that the collector size on those things is gigantic. But as we've seen, the headers in a lot of these cases don't make much of a difference. So, but having headers versus not having headers definitely makes a difference. So that's the way that we run it, and it makes 260 horsepower. So then the next consideration is, okay, you have that kind of motor, and also it doesn't have to be that motor. That's the thing, and I always try to stress that when we're talking about the results of these tests, is that I wish you could have run an L82 or an L48 or some other kind of combination. I'm like, it does the same thing. Go get a motor, and I know the motor engine guys are going to jump on that, so please make a comment about motor and engine, about how it only being electric, because I love that. But if you go to the wrecking yard and get some sort of small block Chevy, all of these same things still apply. Doesn't matter what it is. If you're starting off with some kind of 350 or 400 or 305 or 283 or 265, you're starting off with something, you have a starting point, and then you're going to add to that starting point. So then the question becomes, you have that motor, and hopefully it's hitting on all 8 holes and stuff. And you take a look at the one that we ran, that's a very, very mild camshaft in that thing. It had the cylinder heads on it that were, 76 cc chambers, small valves. It was, had everything going against it. It was not a performance deal at all. But on the 190 horsepower or 260 horsepower motor, it really wasn't holding it back. Because I think this camshaft was like sub 450 lift, and it was less than 190 degrees of duration. Certainly, it might have been closer to 180. So it was not a heavy duty performance kind of thing, but it's a good starting point. So the question becomes, you have a small block that you've run. It's got a 4-barrel on it and headers on it and some sort of stock camshaft and some sort of stock head that's not like a Fuelie head or a VORTECH head. Now, what do you do? What do you do to upgrade it? So you obviously can add boost, which is what we did. We added a VORTECH supercharger to it. That works very well. And as you can see, and we've talked about this many times, that when you add boost to whatever you have, you're multiplying what you're starting with. So if you start off with 100 and 14.5 pounds, you can make 200. So whatever you're starting with, it's some sort of multiplier on it. On a supercharger, It's not a direct multiplier like the turbo is, only because it takes some of the power away to drive it. At these lower power levels and flow levels, it doesn't take nearly as much away from the situation. But, you know, at 7.5 pounds, you're not going to get a 50% gain in power. And you wouldn't, in some instances, because you would you might also not do this because you don't have enough timing in it. There was no intercooler on it. We didn't run really good fuel in this. This thing had a low enough compression where all this could be done on pump gas until we stepped things up. Then we ran 91 on all of these, and then we ran 91 in octane booster when we ran this thing at like 8 pounds, 8.5 pounds with the heads, cam, and intake manifold, because the thing was making over 600 horsepower. So we just figured, hey, look, let's hedge our bets and be a little bit safe and run it with some, you know, I just felt better that way so that we could run enough timing and where the thing could make decent power. We have since this was a blow through application, we do in a sense have intercooling on a blow through application. You do have charge cooling because as you're introducing the fuel with the carburetor, even on just an NA motor, you have charge cooling going on. It's definitely cooling the air. And you have that also when you're heating the air up more, you know, at 7 or 8 pounds, we're not heating the air up dramatically, but you are doing some. And so you're heating the air up. And so it gets to take some of that heat away in the same way that an intercooler would. So that works fairly well. So we know that we can add, we started off at like 263 and then we added the supercharger. And when we added it, one of the things that happens that you need to look for is that when you're running a given pulley combination that might provide a reasonable amount of boost on a modified combination because it's able to use the airflow. When you're running a pulley combination, let's say that was going to make 7 or 8 pounds on a modified motor, on a stock one, the boost is going to be a lot higher. And I've shown this over and over again on the little 302 Fords. And I think I did one maybe on a 347 and on the 351 and other motors where when you run it on the stock motor, because the stock motor has a mild camshaft and small cylinder heads and usually some kind of stockish intake manifold, that you get a really high boost number. Now, you might be thinking, well, yeah, Richard, but it's got a high boost number, so it's making lots of power. No, it has a high boost number because it has lots of restriction. It's much better to not have that. And I've shown that many, many times where we run that in reverse. So we'll run like we did here. We ran the blower on there, and then we do the modifications, and then we run the blower with the same pulley and stuff, and the boost goes way down and the power goes way up. It gets a lot happier. And that's why for years and years and years, I've always, and especially on these centrifugal supercharger deals, I've always recommended that, hey, if you want to step your game up and do two good things, that's make your NA combination more powerful on a blower deal like this. If you make your NA combination more powerful, you'll add more power. You're adding more, and actually three things. You're adding more power NA, which is good. You're lowering the boost, which is good. And you're making more power because now the blower is more efficient, flowing more air. And so you started off with making more power NA, and then you've multiplied now that bigger number. So you get ultimately a much bigger number. So it's very, very good. It's a very good thing to do. I got an interesting question today, and the reason why I wanted to point this out is I got an interesting comment today. Somebody saying, well, I have a 4.8 and I want to run this sloppy stage 2 cam, let's say some sort of biggish camshaft. And he's like, and you're always saying to make the thing most efficient. I'm like, yeah, on a blower, on a turbo, you don't need to do that. In fact, you probably don't want to do that, especially on a 4.8. You want to put a small camshaft in there to get good boost response, and then you can make as much power as you want with the turbo. You're going to have an overabundance of power. On this centrifugal blower, I like going up and making more NA power. I like having less boost and more power. And you can do that, but the problem with doing that on a 4.8 is that you have you're reducing the low speed power, and then you're got a multiplier effect on a turbo as you're reducing the low speed power and you're reducing the boost response. So you're reducing the power even further. And most people are much, much happier on a turbo application with a small cam and then more immediate boost driving on the street. If you're drag racing, we can talk about that and we can figure out a combination for you that will work for the thing that you're trying to do, because it won't be that. But for driving around, that's obviously a much better combination. So what we did after running the blower is we took the blower off, and then I was able to make a bunch of modifications. So we put Airflow Research 195 heads, and these were even eliminator heads, and these are even the comp version. So they sent the double throwdown 195 set. Those were even milled down to 61 cc's. So we had over 10-to-1 compression, which that thing needed because it was in the 8s, and I think it was in the low 8s. Because it had a 4 eyebrow piston. We didn't measure it to see how far down in the hole it was, but it was it's not a good piston. I was a little concerned because at the time we didn't do ring gap in this thing. I don't know what it was from the factory, but we were only running about 7 or 8 pounds, and we were only doing dyno pulls on it. So we weren't running any sort of sustained where we'd get a bunch of ring temperature in it. That being said, had it broke, that would have been on me. So we were able to make a bunch of runs on this thing after we modified. So we went with the Airflow Research heads, the 195 heads. So we got lots of airflow potential. So we get enough cylinder head now to do 550 or 600 horsepower. So we put a camshaft in it, pretty fairly good sized camshaft in it. It was right on the verge of not fitting, and like I said, we ran it anyway. It was a 230, 236 cam, and then we changed over to an RPM air gap. I think that's probably of limited value. It might be some. I'd like to actually do that test and see how it compares to the GM Performance dual plane that we used when we just ran the motor stock. But when we did the whole combination, this thing made a little over 400 horsepower, 410 or so. It made slightly less than the blower combination did. And then the blower combination also had more torque. Even though it was a centrifugal, we were spinning the thing fast enough and it made enough boost that it had fairly reasonable gains down low. I mean, it's still rising like a centrifugal does, but it did pretty good. So the question is, and this will be the poll for tonight. So a lot of guys can't. Like the ultimate thing, obviously, is then combining those. You got all the bolt-ons, the good Airflow Research heads, and the cam, and the intake manifold, and the blower, and you run a reasonable amount of boost like we did, and voila, you go from 400, you go from 260 to 410, and then up to 615 or 20 or whatever. So it's a pretty easy progression for stuff. So, and the ultimate thing is to have the 610 or whatever combination, 610, so 620 horsepower combination. That's the ideal thing. A lot of guys can't afford that, and we won't be able to do that. So the question is, if you could afford one or the other, because the blower and the bolt-on stuff, I think would come out to near a similar amount. Let's say that they did. Let's just say that they did, even if they didn't. Which one would you choose? Would you pick? Okay. Which 400 horsepower combination would you pick? The VORTECH supercharged stock motor or stock plus bolt-on? So would you go bolt-on or boost? I can't really do that. Let's see. I'm going to have to rephrase this. Okay, would you pick the VORTECH supercharged stock motor over the stock plus bolt-on? So would you pick boost over bolt-ons if you had to pick one or the other? That's better. That works out. That works out good. See what dude's got going on tonight. Tonight. Whoa. What's boost without gap? Broken parts normally. Sometimes you can get away with it. Big blocks are good. What about turbocharging LT1? Yes, you can do that. Obviously, Grubworm has shown that you can do it, and not only do it a lot. 96 VORTECH in my 81 Camaro ran into valve clearance issues. We've got a gas-powered Jeep. Okay. Get away. What's up? Boost is a bolt-on. It is. It is. It really is. So somebody was the first like. We're only about 50% on the like quotient here. Is this live? Is it live? It's live. It's all the way live. Electric engines. Yep. How long would that live? How long it would live with a heavy foot? It would run. Supercharged stuff runs a long time. I had a VORTECH on my 5-liter Mustang for 85,000 miles. So, and I ran mine in a way that people will not run their motors, because I ran mine in the Silver State 12 times, actually 10 times with a blower at wide open throttle for 35 minutes straight. So not many people do that. GT45 on a Ford V10 for a 500 horsepower build. I think that blower's that turbo's too small. On an LS383 stroker with turbo, what compression would be best by the choice? You should run 9.8 to 1. I don't know what you need to tell me the other things that are going on there. Is this a drag race motor? What octane are you running? All those things, they're going to help determine that. I think we'll need a bigger wastegate. So is anybody else watching Shark Week? Am I the only one watching Shark Week? I posted in fact, the guys from Engine Masters posted my Keglodon today on Instagram. And so I reposted that. The kegger. Can you like electric and internal combustion? Yeah, you could like everything. There's no reason to be an either or thing. That's part of the problem with people, is that we let our fragile egos get in the way and say that the thing that we like is the only best thing in the world and everything else is bad. It can't be just that we like the thing that we like. We also have to put down other things. I don't know. That's human nature. It's terrible. Has anybody ever heard of de-stroking a VORTECH 350? I'd like to see if we just never see anything about it. You want yours to be a 327? Yeah, put a 3-inch stroke crank in it. That's easily possible. Or a 3,250 stroke. You can make it a 327. You can make it a 302. I need help with a 6-liter. What's the best setup for a 4-inch bore and a I'm assuming you're saying a 4-inch stroke and a motor. You just tell me how much power you're trying to make. And I have lots of 408, which is what that is. I have lots of 408 videos up so you could take a look and see what kind of power they make. Yeah, de-stroking a 350 VORTECH is going to just get you less power. But, you know, I salute guys wanting to do that. What should I do to my LY2 4.8 to make it boost ready? It's already boost ready. Seen some of your videos mention ring gap. Can you help me understand what it does? What mild cam lifter springs? Are you trying to run a turbo, first of all? If you are, then you need to add ring gap. Right now, the gap is not enough. The rings get too hot, and they will pinch together because they will expand and pinch together because they don't have room to go anywhere else except toward each other. They will pinch together, and they will break your piston. If you run too much boost for too long, it's actually not a level of boost. It's actually just temperature. So you want to, what we do is we get these junkyard motors, we take them apart, we put more ring gap in them. We go from wherever they are from the wrecking yard, usually in the teens, and then we put them closer to 28 or so, and then put them back together, and then you can run. There's lots of different cams and lifters and springs. The lifters we keep stock. We normally run all the stock stuff back in it. As far as the lifters and bearings and all that stuff, and the rings, we just cut the factory rings. And then normally what boosted guys do is change the cam. So there's lots of different cam choices. I recommend a small cam for your 4.8 liter. Single GT45 on a stock 350 on a Windsor with much cooling is probably what I'll do in your camper project. Love to have a solid 600 foot-pounds. That turbo would definitely do that. Torque Storm, everything. Again, centrifugal blower like this VORTECH that I'm talking about. I have lots of Torque Storm things up. Valve control limits. If you guys, the guys are interested in Torque Storms, I have, I don't know, 10 or 15 videos up that have Torque Storms on them. I've tried them on everything, on small block Chevys, on a little 4.3 liter V6, because that mounts the same as a small block Chevy. Tried them on Hemis, on LSs of various types. I've even run a twin setup. I've got a twin setup for the big block Chevy as well. So I've run them on a lot of things. I'm going back. I'm scrolling back. Here we go. Jim used to have a large General 350 crank that would fit the small block 400. So the guys that make 372s out of them, or 377s. I went with the blower and lots of bolt-ons with my 427. That's good. Blower keeps cost down on replacement parts. Something goes south and stock reliability may suffer depending on bolt-on selection. Why are kilowatts and newton meters becoming more prevalent? I haven't seen them be prevalent in the United States. They're prevalent elsewhere in the world. But if you told me how many kilowatts something had, I would have no idea what that is. My VORTECH is carbureted HEI thumper cam, 1,000. Valve. Oh, you took 100 thou off. Okay, 100K. Yeah, valve relief not normally shown like that, but that works. I get it. I'm reading it. When I got my car back, I'm putting 1.6 rockers on. So how much lift does that thumper cam have? Does it already have a bunch of lift? Josh, 4.8 turbo engine. Which cam do you prefer? Low lift, fast duration? I'm sorry if you answered. No, I don't. On a 4.8, I would just pick a small cam that's going to offer power. Like a Truck Norris cam's not bad, but I don't know whether you want to work, because the cam will have nothing to do with the fact that it's boosted. That doesn't matter. So you need to pick the camshaft for what you want the camshaft to do. Do you want it to idle good? Do you want it to not idle good? Do you want it to have chop? Do you want it to work with a stock converter? Do you want it to have good drivability? Do you want it to have good boost response? So once you answer all those questions, then you can hone in on a camshaft, because there's hundreds and hundreds of cams that will work for the thing that you're trying to do. There isn't just one. You don't have to have a fast ramp cam. You don't have to have any of that stuff. The turbo is going to dictate the power. So you just tell me what application it's for, and we can kind of get to answering that. Getaway, you're mentally prepping. Got the Starion G54B on the road, 2+ bar. That's a lot. It's real exciting. That would be a lot. Gas power G references from Jurassic Park. Nice. Recent car farm video. What did he put up? Did they I know that Ben and Brian are working on getting that 360 back together and getting that running, because they want to do some kind of rally in it. I'll have to take a look at the car farm and see what's up. How long has it been since the Mustang ran? A long time. Obsession, flat top pistons. Sharks have a week dedicated to Richard Holder. Shit, that's good. That's like a Chuck Norris joke. Sharks don't bite Chuck Norris. Great review on the Truck Norris NSR cam. Question is, do I keep lifters and push rods as well on a bone stock 5.3? We did with those the ones that we ran in there, the stock 4.8 ones, and then on the other Truck Norris test, we ran the stock 5.3s that came from the wrecking yard with I don't know how many thousands of miles on them. My 6 liters falling on its face at 4,000 RPM, but in neutral it revs fine. Any ideas? With that little information, I have no idea what's going on. Is this a factory ECU and stuff? It sounds like it's going into some sort of limp home mode. Does anybody have any advice for him? What's your go-to wastegate? I always use the Turbo Smart stuff, but there are other good ones out there. What's the most horsepower in a Fox body before it gets too squirrely? I don't know. Fox bodies are really good. I run turbo on my 4.8. Yeah, I would. The good combination for a 4.8 is a small cam like the Truck Norris. The Truck Norris might be a little too big, although the guys at Brian Toomey tell me that you can run a stock converter with that. I think it's a little too big for a 4.8 with a stock converter. But if it's a 4.8 and it's got gear, it's in a truck or whatever, and it's got gears. I don't know what car that's in. But that's a decent cam, and it could easily go way into 4-digit power level if you have a turbo that will do that. Follow up on the 384 LS 93 or E85, not drag race, drivability, low end torque, Truck Norris cam, Trailblazer SS front mount, looking for 500-ish. Was thinking an S475 turbo. E85 is way better in every way. So if you have that and you could put it in there, it's going to be better. You might do dual tunes. You have to run less boost and less timing on 93 compared to E85. An S475 turbo would be good. If you want drivability, 384, that should be. I don't think I'd pick a T4 S475. If you get a T6 S475, which is what most people have. I'd pick something smaller than that. If more and 500-ish wheel horsepower, I think I definitely would pick something smaller than that. There are better turbos out there for that. Tile 44 or 60. I would like more wastegate normally. When we run ours, we run 2 45 millimeters. Stock Gen 2 LT1 and E85. I have both, but can't decide whether to throw in an S366 or a GT45. No real big power number. It's just a fun low boost. You should put the 366 on there. And then since they'll both go on, just try one and see. The montage for SDAC and prep for. Okay, cool. I'll have to check it out. $479 lift is not very much lift. Which boost can a stock high protected piston take? I don't know. I've never tried one. Have you done any more planning for the 24-hour marathon? Yes, I have. It'd be epic to do a big bang. That's not going to happen because I'm gonna have to do that here because I can't do that at West Tech. Your Fox bodies tear sheet metal in the back near the shock towers. They can from real hard manual trans launch drag strip stuff. With a past video on BTR Truck Norris versus TSP Chopper Harbor, I got the Chopper Harbor because it was $50 less. As the specs are close to one another, it's a mild build with a fall winner on 4.8. That will work fine. That cam did very similar things to the Truck Norris cam. A truck with a 4.8. The 4.8s are good. They're just little and they require a different camshaft. I must say group rants constantly don't waste money on bolt-ons and just go straight boost. Yet every member that went bolt-ons prior to boost have the fastest cars. Boost on a stock motor is not going to get you what boost on a modified motor is going to get you, especially on that particular thing. If you're talking about 462 valves, they need a lot of help. I like to run a 4.8 with a 76 millimeter turbo on it for the street. Yet not everyday driver around 18 pounds of boost. I don't really talk in boost levels. So if you have a 4.8, what kind of power are you wanting out of it? So we need to talk about turbos in terms of power. Because 18 pounds on a motor that starts out at 300 horsepower is not the same as 18 pounds of boost on a motor that makes 400 or 450. It's a big difference. What's the difference between a 706 head and an 862 head? There's no difference in terms of power. They perform exactly the same because the ports and the valve size and the chamber and everything is the same. They have a different casting process. Who's the go-to company for DoD delete? Would like to go the biggest cam without swapping a torque converter. So that's not going to be a very big cam. I would talk to Texas Speed or Brian Tooley, one of the guys out there that you've worked with. Have you heard of oil filters collapsing on LSs? I've never had that happen in any of the testing that I've done. And we have some suspect motors that we got from the wrecking yard, but I haven't ever had that happen. Oh, with 479 lift, my valves are tapping the pistons, leaving small imprints. The lift has almost nothing to do with that. Your piston to valve is determined by the duration. It's how long it's how long the valve is open, not how high you're lifting it. Because at maximum lift, the piston's already way down the hole. It's out of the way at maximum lift. It could be an inch or more down. So you don't have to worry about that. What you have to worry about is how long you're hanging the valve down there while the piston's coming up, or how fast the piston chases the valve, how fast the valve chases the piston down. So that's what you need to worry about. How much duration does that camshaft have? What turbo should I get if I want 650 wheel horsepower on 4.8 liters? 750. That's like S475 territory. Until one broke and went back in the intake. Yeah, you have a cam duration problem. Let's see. LS7 versus LS3 head video helped me on my LSX 454. One of the intakes I'd like to try is only made for the LS3 heads, but I was worried about losing a bunch of power. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a bunch. 1,000 horsepower on a 4.8. How would you set it up? Single turbo, cam size. You can take a look up at I have videos up where we're making more than 1,000 horsepower on 4.8 stuff. So, but are you just interested in making the 1,000 horsepower, or are you interested in driving it around? Are you interested in how the cam sounds, what the drivability is off of boost, at running it at lower boost? I need more information. To make 1,000 horsepower on a 4.8 is a stock 4.8 with springs. I would put head studs in it and ring gap, and since you're going to do it, you're putting head gaskets in it anyways. And any of about 1,000 different camshafts will do that. As long as you have 1,000 horsepower turbo, there's lots and lots of camshafts that will allow you to make 1,000 horsepower on a 4.8 with 1,000 horsepower cam. You can do it with a Truck Norris. You can do it with a stage 1 turbo cam, a stage 2, a stage 3, a stage 1 NA cam, a nitrous cam, an LS9 cam, and any of, like I said, of all kinds of different cams. So the more information that we have for the other things that you care about, that would help with what you're trying to do. Got a Cloy's billet face timing set to go on my LS2. It's already been rebuilt. I shouldn't need to get the crank rebalance after installing the timing set. No, you're fine. I don't know why you're going to a billet face timing set, but that because it's not really necessary, but you won't need to rebalance it. I like the challenge of making the most power out of an NA motor. Yeah, that is more challenging. '99 Dakota, RTM1 intake, looking at 480 lift, 264, 268, 40-pound injectors. And then you killed it with the word thoughts. Disappointing. The 264, 268 is an advertised number, but given that advertised number, well, I think it would have to be with a 480 lift. That's going to be a really mild camshaft. I'll drink the all cams or turbo cams Kool-Aid. That kind of gives it a negative connotation. If you demon swap a Wrangler, is it wrong to name it a Dangler? No, that's like a perfect name. That's like spot on. You get points for that. How's our poll doing? 60. Oh, it just changed to 64%. Would you pick the VORTECH supercharged stock motor over the stock plus bolt-ons? Most people are picking the boost over the bolt-ons. I did really like I had a lot of fun on the VORTECH Mustang. I drove it around for a really long time. It was a lot of fun. I can't believe how much better it was when I took the all the plates and the end cap off my Superchargers. Superchargers look cool though. Can you try and blow up a stock small block Chevy? I would like to do a big bang on a L31 on a VORTECH small block. Soda 359. I don't know what those numbers are that you're giving me. Those are not duration numbers. 279, 297. Unless those are those would have to be advertised numbers, and there wouldn't be a decimal point in them. Those would be lift numbers if they have a decimal point. You don't care how it sounds, and you don't care how it acts off a boost. I want to run E85 in a single turbo. And you want to make 1,000 horsepower? So 1,000 horsepower territory is a VS Racing 7872 Gen 2 kind of turbo, or an S475, or even better, an S480, that size turbo. With a 4.8, I would put a cam and springs in it. You could put a Truck Norris cam, a Chupacabra cam. I would put something like that, put springs in it, use a stock intake manifold, stock throttle body, do a spring upgrade that goes with that camshaft. I would do head studs, I would do head gaskets, I would do ring gap, and then that combination will be able to make 1,000 horsepower. Richard, who should I set my TPI intake for porting under? How do I go about doing the extrude honing to it? You can't do extrude honing to it. You have to send it to extrude hone, and then they do it. I don't even know if they do that anymore. It was a long time ago that we did those. But there are people, probably TPIS does porting of the lower manifolds, because the lower manifold can actually be accessed with conventional porting tools. So that's not that, I mean, it's a little bit of work. Or try to find one like a TPIS base or one of the other bases that have the big base, that already have the big openings in them. You can port a stock one. They might do that. Jim over there might do that, or he would be a good source for finding out how you improve upon that. I'm going to try to make one of the fastest all-motor 3.6 Pennstar cars. Cylinder heads flow 300, so need to make sure intake, throttle body, and pull their pipe to allow it to flow that. Yeah, what you need is camshaft. The fact that the head flows 300 is not going to do anything for you when the rest of the motor doesn't need 300 CFM per hole. You are going to definitely need camshaft, and probably, I don't know if is that a long run or intake. I would imagine that it is. Richard, have you tried exotic head studs from Canada? I have not. Let's see. 3 truck 4.8, that's reliable, running 650 wheel horsepower. Told me S475 turbo, chopper cover cam plus ring gap. Will that run smooth? Will it last? All of that will work, yeah. On a 4.8, like I said, a chopper cover and a truck Norris cam, I think, are on the edge of stock converter use, and they will have a noticeable idle on a 4.8. You could go with a smaller cam than that, a smaller, milder cam than that on a 4.8. Bobby, how much horsepower would I make with a 5.3? Compared to what? Did I miss another thing that I should have answered back here? Yeah, I don't see anything to compare it to back here. Would love to see how much ARP main studs actually work and see how much a steel small block Chevy crank can take. ARP main studs are better than factory bolts. That's not the question. The hardware definitely is better, and it's better at holding what you're holding. The question now is that the problem? And probably it's not. Have you ever tested any of the LS firing order cams? We've tested 4.7 swap small block Chevy cams and big block Chevy cams, and the firing order doesn't do anything. It says it runs cooler and smoother and makes more horsepower. When we tested changes in firing order, it didn't do anything. It sounds different. But and the reason that the OE went with the LS firing order was to change some sort of vibration quality, I think for longevity and maybe for NVH. That's why they did it at the OE level. But it doesn't, the firing order didn't make any power. For a stock L33, 600 horsepower for a daily driver. I'm sure you're talking about a boosted application, single or twin turbo. It doesn't matter. The single or twin is not a choice that's going to dictate daily driver or not. Either one of those will work, and either one of those will make that power, and either one of those will have the same drivability. Usually people pick a single or twin based on packaging, like what fits best or what they like the look of best. Extrude honing it's not inexpensive, and it's best applied to long runner intake manifolds. So like that lower manifold on a tune port deal, like I said, you can access that to porting. That's something that you really can do yourself. No brakes. You want all that? Do you want 50 miles to the gallon too? How much horsepower would I make with a 5.3 20 over piston stock heads with a 205 217? Is that a 500 lift cam? I'm assuming. I don't know. I should have videos up on something like that. The stock one makes 350 the way that we test it. So it'd probably with a 205 cam, I don't know, sub 400 probably, maybe near 400. But injectors and fuel pumps as my go-to. I don't have a go-to. We run injectors based on the size that we need to feed the fuel supply that we need for the power output and fuel choice. Like we're running E85, we need a bigger injector for, let's say, 1,000 horsepower combination because you need more fuel flow for the 85s. So we pick the injectors based on a lot of times what we have there laying around, but also based on how much fuel flow we need to support the power output. The pump is lucky for us on the engine dyno. It has a big Aeromotive brushless pump. So we have all the pump that we could possibly use. Do you know of any cylinder head experts on low lift flow? Maybe talk to David Vizard and see what he thinks. Max lift is 400, but it's not just low lift flow. Is this a 4-valve head? I'm thinking that it would be. The 4-valve head is going to be different than a 2-valve head. And here's one thing I can tell you about. When we ran a set of, we ran a stock LS3 and with stock LS3 heads. And then I put CNC ported LS3 heads on it and we gained 10 horsepower because all the rest of the stuff was stock. It had headers on it, but it had a stock camshaft, a stock intake manifold. Oh, the stock intake manifold we know will make a lot more power because we've made 600 or 700 horsepower with that intake manifold. With the heads that we put on, we've made 700 horsepower. So we know that those will support that. But we didn't have a 700 horsepower combination underneath that. So despite the fact that we had lots and lots of head flow, the head flow is not going to do it. You need to get camshafts for that thing. If you want to make power, have some stock camshafts reground and reconfigure them in that head. We've done that a lot on a lot of our, because we've done, I've done Bonneville applications with OE guys where there's nothing made. Like that Suzuki Kazashi is a perfect example. There's no cams made for that. There were no cams made for the Volkswagen that we did. We made cams for, well, we didn't make them. We had cams reground and then put them in and then figured out what else we had to do now that they were a smaller base circle. Did we have to change the intake or the valve height? Did we have to put shims on them? Did we have to put, sometimes we got lucky and we could put shims under the lash adjusters or the, what are essentially kind of lifters. So you will, I would recommend camshafts because you're not going to gain much power from head flow when you already have excessive head flow. It kind of sounds like you do. Is there a good difference between the 7-layer MLS head gasket and the 9-layer Texas Speed head gasket on the boosted application? I think you're probably looking at a microscopic level where you don't need to be worried about that. We run Felpro head gaskets or the LS9 head gaskets on all the big bang motors, and we've never heard a head gasket. If you heard a head gasket, it's because you had the tune wrong or you blew something else up. I don't think you would ever get to a point where I hurt the head gasket because the head gasket wasn't strong enough. That's not a thing. I might not have enough cylinder head thickness. I might not have enough cooling. I might have the wrong tune. I might have other things that are going on, but they're probably not going to be just head gasket strength. You have a preferred head gasket for 350 upgraded with VORTECH heads? No, I don't know that specifically. We have a bunch of Felpro head gaskets that we have access to at WestTech, and so we would normally just put another stock Felpro head gasket on there. 352 in Windsor, truck intakes. Yeah, that upper, they used to do a lot of the factory HO uppers, a lot of the Cobra uppers, all of that stuff were good applications for extrude honing. Jonathan, let me know. Have you taken this to the dyno at all to find out what kind of power the thing makes? Andrew, I don't have a favorite supercharger company. So I do testing with all of them, and I just demonstrate what the superchargers do. And so then you guys get to decide, I like this, or this thing worked for what I'm trying to get done. This type of supercharger, like I have videos up comparing turbos, a roots blower, a twin screw, and a centrifugal. And that generally is what they do. And so if you have a good rapport with, let's say you want to pick a centrifugal supercharger and you like the guys at ProCharger, then go with those guys. You like the guys at VORTECH or the guys at TorqueStorm, whatever, go with them. Or one of them has one that is in the price that you want. Get that. I purposely try not to play any sort of favorite on when I'm doing this testing, because that doesn't help with the outcome of the video. Appreciate the help. Just trying to do up my stock 91 L98. There's lots of L98 videos up. These of all Boosted Boys have a Sawzall customized Tesla. Or so are they doing the let's get rid of all the weight thing? I bought an LT1 high-res intake for 45 bucks. The garage sale guy said it's yours. I looked it up. $540. Guy must be nuts. Let's see. It's even polished. Nice. David Vizard is the only other guy I learned from. He's a sharp guy. He's done a lot of stuff. You can get lost in forums. You can. The problem with forums and even groups, and any group of people, is they try. People go out of their way to try to establish a hierarchy. Well, this guy is the fastest guy here. Everybody should listen to him. Well, what if that guy doesn't know what he's talking about? He's lucked into, or has put the most money and effort into, because there's always going to be one or two guys that are doing stuff, that are going out and trying stuff. And I like that. I like guys that are trying stuff, blowing it up, fixing it, going back out and doing it. But it doesn't mean that guy's the right way. That guy's doing it the right way. Nick, the guy, the gentleman that I did the video on that has the 10-second minivan, he's a perfect example. There's lots of guys in that Mopar family in the group that are doing things a certain way. Nick's not. He's just doing it his way. And he's obviously succeeded. And I like that. There's no reason that you have to listen to the established expert there. I'm a perfect example. You don't have to listen to everything I say. You should go get information from lots of different places. But there's no reason that you have to listen to that one guy. Do something different. Find out on your own. That's how we get experience, from making bad choices. That's what experience is. You guys think that necessary on a? So somebody asked, what is the reasoning behind people shimming oil pumps? But yeah, they're trying to increase the pressure. I haven't ever done that on any motor that I've ever built, on any LS that I've ever put together. Does anybody know what size a factory LSA injector is? Oh, Samsung washing machine was on the fritz. For the 3.6, I calculated it needs a cross section of 2.5-inch square inches for each runner. I'll most likely need a 90mm throttle body, reduce airflow loss, but a 70.6mm diameter needed to support the heads. Well, you could, if you hook up a vacuum gauge in the intake manifold, it can tell you how much vacuum you have, and that will tell you whether or not the throttle body is big enough. Rather than do the calculations, you should just use actual data. And then if you don't have any vacuum there, then the throttle size that you have on there is already big enough to support the power output of the motor. And if it's not, and you have vacuum, and you put a bigger throttle body on there, and the vacuum goes away, the power should go up. My Mustang gets a 2.4 60-foot time. Spinning goes on to a 14.4. The weight loss test had just messed with torque vectoring traction control. For upgrade in our application, 13 ZL1, I'd pick a 2650. A 2650 roots blower is a good choice. Want a 5.3 with a turbo? What cam should I get? Yes, you should put a cam in it. Are you aware of a coil on plug small buck Ford timing kit? I haven't seen one, but it wouldn't surprise me that they have it. Does that extra ring gap make sense for nitrous? Yes. On Ella, trying is definitely the way to do it. I like to be different. I've seen so many doom and gloom stories on forums. On the LS, they say ProCharger and Superchargers won't last. Yeah, 85,000 miles later. And that's where the idea came for the Big Bang one. They're like, oh, you can't run 10 pounds on these. These pistons will break. These powder metal rods, these things will break. They will break. Everything will break if you detonate it. That's where all that came from, is that people telling you that you can't do that. You run M295 or M296 oil pumps on these engines. I run whatever the stock one is that I got from the wrecking yard. If we put I can't remember what it might have been a 295. I can't remember. We did have a, who are they? Sealed Power or something, but Mellings makes them, but I don't remember what the part number was if we ever put a new pump in something. How much horsepower does an LS53 head put out? You mean the head all by itself? Or are you asking how much power it will support? LS swapping an S10, good luck. That's cool. Two more minutes, close out our poll at 69%. Air to air, air to water. Just take your pick. Air to air for most street things seems to be the go-to deal. It just depends on what you can fit there. Admiral, have you tried doing all the things like you pump up the front tires, take pressure out of the back tires, disconnect the front sway bar, put worn out shocks on the back or on the front rather? Have you tried all that stuff? Recal, what's up? On LS, have you drilled holes in the pistons at the oil rings? No, I haven't done that. Building a 94 351 FCAM 185 stock pistons. A 351 is good, and especially with 351 with 185 heads. Adam, happy to help. Bobby, what are you trying to figure out on your 5.3? Trying to figure out the chamber volume? Do you know anything about the Capri from World Cup 1999? What is World Cup 1999? So obviously the answer is no. That since I don't even know what that is. Are you talking about a rally car or something? Do you need to degree a cam? I don't ever degree the cams. We put them in. We just put them in. Are you talking about how big the chamber is, Bobby, or how many? What's the port volume, or? Colin, a GT45, one of those cheap turbos, will do that before 3,000 RPM. Any 5.3s to stay away from at the wrecking yard? Yeah, an LS4 5.3 that's in a front wheel drive, so it's pretty easy to spot. All the rest of them are fine. Bobby, I still don't know what you're asking. How many cc's did 5.3 heads put out? Are you asking about the chamber volume? Are you asking about the intake port volume? Or are you asking maybe how much they flow, like how much CFM? Are you asking about how much power they make? I don't know what you're asking. Yeah, just pick the LS4 intake manifold. That's like the worst choice ever. And then I guess just take the LS4 crankshaft too, right? To really make your life miserable. I have lots of videos up that show all of the information on the 5.3. It tells you everything. It tells you intake valve size, exhaust valve size, port volume, chamber volume, head flow, how much power they'll support NA. You could make more than 1,000 horsepower with a stock head with a turbo, so they'll support lots of horsepower under boost. You have a video on the difference on the LS1, on the difference between LS1 and LS1 through LS9, like what each motor is. I don't have an LS video like that. So why again are you putting holes in your piston? I haven't built a 455. I did run one, a Buick 455. I did run one on the dyno that was given to me, and now I'm having to build one. We put a turbo on it. And on that note, it's time to go. 104, an hour and 4 minutes. It is time to go. I will be back tomorrow. If you haven't, please take a look at the video that I posted on the small box Chevy stuff. I got more Ford and LS stuff coming up.